Hi everybody, welcome to Sandy Treasures. Today I am doing a project on a bodyboard and I'm getting my palette ready with all these different colors. We're not going to go over all the different colors I'm using because really, what is the project that you're doing? I imagine you're doing your own project. Totally different than this, but there's always a learning something that you get from just watching somebody else do it. My favorite thing to do really is anything that does not require tracing. So I really like when my projects are more free, and that for me is also more original. I like to be a little bit more original, and if I can help it, not trace, because it doesn't have to be that accurate. That's my favorite thing. And in this case, I am starting off with the manatee picture. I do have a reference picture, but like I said before, I'm not tracing. I'm just, doing line art first with a water pencil. That way, if I need to make any corrections, I can easily remove the water line with a wet napkin. And just for the same reason that I like using watercolor pencils to do my line art, so that way if I make a mistake, I can just remove it with a wet paper towel. I also, for the same reasons, I like using oil paints, because if I make a mistake, I can just go ahead and move the paint around until I like it. And if I need to remove it altogether because it went outside of the line, then I use a little bit of mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. Some people like using turpentine, and that's fine. And once I get the base of my manatee, I actually let it dry for a couple of days, because the next time I come up on my manatee, I do little details, and if I screw it up, then I can easily wipe it off with mineral spirits, as I have been doing just with the base portion of this manatee project. And if you're wondering about this board, is that the real wood grain? The answer is no. I actually have painted these wood grains and I like the look of it. This board had some wood grain, but it was so light you could barely see it. So I figured, well, once I paint over this, then I will have just enough wood grain as an accent, and I really like how it's looking so far. Now I wish it was real wood grain instead of this faux painting of wood grain that I painted on it, but I still, it's interesting to actually see what this is looking like, and I'm leaving that transparency onto this whole manatee project. I don't want to have the paints too heavy because I want that wood grain to peek right through. And of course, if you guys are interested in certain subjects or more detail in a certain aspect of this painting or any of my paintings, please let me know, because to me this is all about, let's paint, let's have some fun. So here's a close-up. Isn't this gorgeous? I mean, I love how that wood grain is showing right through, which it means you guys are going to see a lot more of this technique, because I am totally infatuated with this technique. I love it. And then doing a manatee is like, oh my God, these creatures are so ugly, they're adorable, and so big. They're just amazing. They're so gentle and huge. Anyway, so here I'm doing a little bit of the detail, but I'm very calculated with it. It's like there's only so much I'm going to do, and you're going to see me stop in a minute when it comes to doing the details for the manatee. Because like, let's say all the whiskers and stuff, I'm not going to go there until the paint dries, and that's why I move on to my next project, which is the mermaid. So now I'm getting all my paints ready to do the mermaid, and I need a lot of fleshy tones for this particular one, but I have done my mermaids with green hues or blue hues, and that's a lot of fun too. So we're not getting into the colors again, because that's not what this video is, because this is more about getting the general idea of what is it that I'm using to achieve what I'm achieving. Also, since I'm looking at the video as we're going, I see that I have my linseed oil cap in the middle of my tray. You see that little blue cap? I just put a little bit of linseed oil there, and I dab my brush occasionally into the color and straight onto the board. I rather use linseed oil if I am doing a project that I want to have dry kind of fast. So although it's oil, and most oils take a long time, but linseed oil somehow dries kind of fast. It takes like a couple days. And then that gives me the freedom to go ahead and work on all the little details on the manatee or whatever it is that I'm doing. So first do a base and then let it dry and then move on to doing little details. So that way if you goof up, you can always remove it or move the paint around. So here I'm getting everything ready for my mermaid and I'm excited about it. I love starting projects. I love starting and finishing projects. That's my favorite part. But you know, I can't complain about the whole process. The process is a wonderful experience for me too. So here with my mermaid, of course, I start with the skin tones and I'm careful about dabbing the skin tones around here and there, but not too careful, because one of the things that I found out is that the watercolor pencils will not be removed with oils, only with water. So I can basically paint over these lines that I have created for my mermaid and not worry about getting rid of them because they're not going to go away. I actually had to remove some of the lines with water on the outer layer of my manatee with some wet paper towels. So just to let you know, that's another little fun tip to know. So I'm very careful about where I put all of these colors, and I want to stay within the lines anyway because I want to keep everything looking sharp and good. And if you're wondering where I got my mermaid, because I do use reference sometimes, but when it comes to the mermaids, I can draw them freehand pretty much, but the part that I have a little bit of a handicap is where the shadows are going to land. So that I do have to, you know, I use some kind of reference material. And in this case, what I did is I grabbed my Procreate on my computer and I created my mermaid, and I had to look at a lot of different references, including myself in the mirror, to come up with this version of a mermaid. So you're going to see I have a video on how I create some of the models for my paintings, and I do that on Procreate, and I think that it's a good tool. It's very useful. It takes me almost as long as it takes me to do a painting, to be honest, and sometimes, you know, I like to skip that process. But let's say when I'm doing Procreate, I can grab the whole reference material of like fish or manatees or whatever it is and just put it right on the picture. But when it comes to the mermaid, because I'm creating this mermaid from scratch and I'm using a ton of different references, I'm not going to go there. All you'll see is that I'm actually creating the mermaid when you see that video. But anyway, we are on the subject here of where I put all the skin tones, and I know those boobies look like they're a couple of balls that were just put there, and that's okay because this to me is a doll version. It's my unique doll version, my style when it comes to doing girls, and I've always liked painting female figures. I just don't have the great memory of like where all the shadows land. I do remember some, but not all of them, so sometimes I do have to look at some kind of reference. In this case, like the muscles that are in the stomach, I felt that I was having a little bit of a hard time, to be honest with you. So I looked at models that were kind of fit and showed a little bit of those muscles, and I did my best imitation. So there you have it. And I actually don't really care if the anatomy is not entirely correct, because I know that I exaggerate a lot of features anyway, and these are my doll versions. This is my unique style, and I actually like that little bit of quirkiness that I put into my dolls. And if I was going to do a commission painting of you with the doll version style that I like doing, you know, things are going to get exaggerated. The eyes are going to be bigger, the head is going to be bigger, the body is going to be smaller. You know, everything I do is just a little bit quirkier, and I'm okay with that. I actually love the way it finishes. And that's part of the reason why this style is my favorite style, because this is basically where I let my hair down and I do whatever I want to do. And what I love even more is the fact that my paintings have soul, that I actually went through a whole process to do these paintings. And anybody out there that is wondering, you know, whether they should stick to painting or go with artificial intelligence, I say stick to painting, because you will reap the benefits. You will be more original. You yourself something happens to your brain when you're actually doing these paintings. You are more of a problem solver. You are more of a person that can cope with transitions, doing art. So keep art in your life, and hopefully you won't transition into AI, or if you do transition into AI, I hope it's just a tool to make original art. I hope. One can only hope. And back to the mermaid subject, here I'm starting to get into the reds by doing the base on the lips and some on the cheeks and the forehead and all the places that it's required. And just like with the manatee, I kind of like base her. I do a base on all of this, and then I leave her alone for a couple of days so she dries out. And once it's dry, I do the finishing details. But this is a good head start. This right here where I'm at right now, I feel like it's going to look beautiful at this point. I'm really happy with how she's looking. Another thing that I want to mention while I remember at this moment is that since I'm working with oil paints and linseed oils I'm mixing it with linseed oils, at the very beginning the paints are very slippy, very wet, and my technique for this is to just go ahead and lay the paints, just place them wherever you want them to be, and then move on to another section and come back after a few minutes, because now your paints are going to be a little bit more tacky, or how can I say, the texture is going to be more workable. So it makes the job easier, because if it's super wet, you may get a little frustrated after a few minutes. So it's good to just put the paint down, let it get tacky, and then come back and work with it. Like here, doing the starfish on the boobs, notice how I'm picking the color of the skin right into the starfish. In this case, it's okay because I need a medium tone as well as a vibrant tone, and I need a shady tone and all of that stuff. So at this point, it's okay. But normally I would wait until it's dry and then go ahead and do the starfish as another layer. And with the eyes, I'm going through kind of like the same thing, where I'm picking up the white base that I put in the eyes with my green, and it's okay. And for this instance, I can actually work with the medium tones and highlight a little bit, and then also make some areas darker, and it works. So you really have to play with these oil paints to see how far you can go and how much you want to let dry before you move on to the second layer. Now keep in mind that I am trying to leave a translucency about this whole painting, because I want to keep that grain in the background showing right through. And if you're watching this video as soon as I posted it, I just want to let you know that in the near future, I'm planning on breaking down, let's say doing a face and doing all of the features that go in a face, how to do a nose, how to do the eyes and the lips and so on. Because once you get like the basis of doing faces or hands or whatever it is that you're doing, all of a sudden things become a lot easier, of course. Like doing this hand right here. I remember at the beginning when I would do hands, I would have such a hard time, and I would just repeat and erase and repeat and erase. But now it's like, I know that everything has what I say a shitty stage to it, and I don't mind if it looks a little weird at first, because I know that I stay on it. And that's the thing, that a lot of people, they see their paintings in the middle of their paintings and they say, wow, this looks weird, this is not happening, and they give up. But a lot of times when I see paintings that are so-so, I actually see a painting that was halfway done, that maybe needed to be finished, right? So stay with it and continue to work on it. And this is the thing too that a lot of people do, and I actually had my struggles with it too, which is not to mix your tones. Like, leave your highlights where they belong, leave your low lights where they belong, leave your shades where they belong. Your mid-tones, they have a place. So once you start mixing everything and over blending, then you lose a lot of the grace that is in the picture. So pay attention to those things. And of course, I will be doing videos in the near future about the basis on how to do the shadows and the highlights and all that stuff. But for now, hopefully you guys are being very entertained enough to where you can give me a like and a subscribe and hit the bells for the notifications, because that's how we advance in YouTube world. Also, I want to point out, like, I'm doing the hand kind of at the end there, right? I actually saved enough of the mixture that I used for the hand because I mixed fleshy tone with other colors. And the last thing you want to do, especially when it comes to the face, is not remember exactly what you used. So make enough of those mixtures when it comes to fleshy tones. And also don't start changing your browns, you know, like, or don't start changing whatever it is that you mixed with it. Like, have your set of fleshy tones separate and always continue to mix those, because it's very easy and very apparent to see where the person ran out of the fleshy tone and then try to mix it, and then it just did not blend quite well. But you know, a true artist will make it work. So but that's just a tip. I don't know if you're in the beginning stage or what stage you are, but all of these little tips, they help, right? So here on the tail, I have a lot of fun because it's very liberating to actually just whip out some curves and kind of like connect the dots, so to speak. And as you can see, I have a tendency of doing this ruffle type of skirt looking tail that I really like on my mermaids. And for now, I really like that style. So here it's definitely a wet on wet, and I'm working all the shades and all the tones in as much as I can. You know, I wanted to do more, but I got to a point that I had to actually just let it dry. And I'm sorry about the reflection of my light, but I needed to see what I was doing, and it's very hard, I mean, to get the light to where it's not doing that reflective thing. And speaking of that, that is part of the reason I like to work next to a window, because by getting the natural light, you know, you're halfway there when it comes to getting enough light. I do find that I need a little extra oomph. My window does a nice job when it comes to giving me light, but it's just not enough. And maybe you already figured out what is that is moving in the background, and that is plastic that I have covering my walls, because sometimes, you know, with the flick of your paintbrush, you can be splattering all over your walls. And this is oil, so you're not going to be able to like remove the oil from your walls that easily. So I'd rather just go ahead and cover them with plastic and be done. And here at this point, I'm doing some more details on the body and on the boobs, on the starfish and all that. But I have let this dry for a couple of days. So now it doesn't matter, whatever I do goes right on top of dry paint. And it's easy to, you know, when you do a highlight, it's not going to get all muddy with whatever paint is on the base. And the same thing, of course, with the shadows and all that stuff. And I can do the details. If I make a mistake, I can easily just erase it with a little bit of mineral spirits. And once I'm done with doing the starfish, I actually jump onto doing some scales for the tail. And guess what? My paint was not quite dry enough, and it was just a mess. I actually lost a little bit of paint on some areas. I really should have stopped myself, but in the effort to complete a video, and I had enough stamina and I wanted to continue, like I almost couldn't even stop myself. But yeah, I actually messed up a little bit. So though you see that scales being done and everything, I did lose some paint on the base of the tail, which in a moment you're going to see a close-up of that section. So basically, this is a close-up shot of what you shouldn't do and why you shouldn't do it. So it's not dry enough, and I'm missing chunks of the cad orange or cad red that I applied on the tail. So wherever I put the brown, I'm actually removing some chunks of that color. I was so upset with that. It was such a mess. But what I did was just let it dry and then fix it as best as I could. And at this point, I just do some touching up on some details, and I leave it alone and let it dry until the next one. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I see you on the next video. So thank you for watching Sandy Treasures, and I hope you guys join me for the next round to watch how I completed this project. Alrighty, bye!